Deep in the murky waters of the Amazon, where life thrives in brutal whispers, and shadows crawl with silent intent, there lies a creature both majestic and monstrous, the anaconda. But this is no tale of a proud serpent gliding effortlessly through green waters. This is the story of a beast ravaged, scarred by parasites, so heinous their grotesque presence disrupts the very natural order we often romanticize. Imagine the cold hiss of scales slick with mucus, the glint of eyes filled not with vigor, but a glassy weakness. Embedded in its thick, muscular skin is a ghastly wound, a festering nightmare that oozes dark, viscous fluids, home to an infestation that rivals the fiercest horror tales spun by the darkest corners of the wild. This anaconda's flesh is punctured by countless tiny invaders, parasites whose existence is both cruel and strangely methodical. These unwelcome passengers burrow deeper, each burrow a miniature sewer system of decay and infection. They are the real rulers here, turning the snake's once gleaming body into a landscape of pustules and lesions. Boils erupt like the surface of a hellish, bubbling pool, each one a pulsating beacon of parasitic life feeding relentlessly on the blood and tissue of their host. The skin around these wounds is mottled and blackened as if kissed by disease itself, while the serpent's powerful body, designed for stealth and strength, now twitches unpredictably under the torment of its invisible assailants. Parasite infestation is a dark dance of survival, a biological horror story playing out beneath the water's surface, far from human gaze. In this wet underworld, parasites conduct a grim symphony, leeches grasping their tender victims with unyielding teeth, nematodes whining through flesh like sinewy coils of death, and microscopic protozoans invading cells, altering the minuscule world. Inside the snake's veins, these creatures thrive on suffering, their life cycle cruelly. In the depths of one of the darkest nights, under a moon obscured by heavy clouds, a black lion stumbles across the unforgiving terrain, its imposing frame marred by an abominable spectacle. This is no ordinary battle scar or weathered mark of survival. This wound is a grotesque testament to the unseen horrors of nature's relentless cycles. From a distance, it might appear as a strange cocoon, shimmering with an eerie moisture that hints at something far more sinister than mere injury. As the camera zooms in, the viewer is confronted with a horrific sight. The lion's skin is ruptured and swollen, harboring a mass of writhing, parasitic larvae pulsating beneath a translucent membrane. The black mane, once majestic and intangible like a shadow, is now a dreadful gallery for these vile creatures that feast upon the flesh beneath, turning the king of the savannah into a host for nature's darkest designs. What we witness here is a shocking, intimate glimpse into the macabre relationship between predator and parasite, an ancient and brutal dance of survival and decay. The lion's wound exudes a sickly sweet odor, a cocktail of decay and life, as these parasites, likely botfly larvae or a similarly invasive species, have drilled into its tissues, creating a warm, protected nursery. Beneath the surface of this grisly scene unfolds a complex ecosystem, where millions of microorganisms thrive, feeding on the lion's flesh, blood, and decaying cells. The host remains alive, its body reacting with inflammation and swelling, producing pus and fluids that nourish the parasites. The infection festers, a silent war waged beneath the majestic animal's proud exterior. In the dense, shadow-swathed reaches of the Amazon, a jaguar, one of the most formidable predators to roam the earth, lies crippled by a grotesque affliction. Its golden-flecked hide, usually a canvas of power and grace, is marred by grotesque swellings, bulbous, dark cocoons that pulsate with a sickly rhythm beneath the surface. These are not scars of battle, but prisons of parasitic invasion, the cruel handiwork of a relentless biological saboteur. At first glance, the sight is repugnant, a living tapestry of decay, a testament to nature's darker underbelly, where survival is both brutal and bewildering. These cocoons are not mere wounds, they are elaborate nests for a parasite's youth. The jaguar has been ensnared by an insidious enemy, parasitic larvae that burrow beneath its skin, feeding, growing, and transforming at the expense of their host's very flesh. As the larvae hatch, they engineer their hard, armored cases from the jaguar's tissue, creating these grotesque cocoons. Each swelling is essentially a nursery for the next generation of these parasitic creatures, thriving parasitically in a macabre symbiosis of life feeding on life. The infestation is horrifically efficient. Beneath the jaguar's sleek fur, these parasites inject enzymes that dissolve muscle, allowing the larvae to evoke tunnels just under the skin. The host's immune system wages a desperate war, encapsulating the invaders with layers of fibrous tissue, forming the cocoon shells visible from the outside. What follows is a feast of decay and regeneration, the skin constantly forced to repair itself, even as the parasites mechanize its destruction. The jaguar's movements become labored, its energy sapped beneath the shimmering surface of the ocean, where sunlight dances only fleetingly, and the world seems both alive and indifferent. A lone dolphin drifts, a creature once sleek and vibrant, now marked by a dark testament to life's relentless cruelty. Its body is marred by a horror so grotesque that the casual observer might look away. Yet here lies a haunting narrative of survival and decay spun from the living fabric of the sea. This dolphin bears a wound, a brutal, festering gash teeming with a living nightmare muscles. Those tiny mollusks whose jagged shells embed themselves in the flesh, not just clinging, but invading. This is not a simple injury. It is a grotesque infestation, a slow and savage takeover of flesh by hardened invaders. The flesh around the wound weeps a grim cocktail of oils, salt water, and decay, giving off a faint, sour tang that the sea itself seems reluctant to swallow. Mussels, those unassuming shelled creatures usually perceived as mere beachside delicacies, act here as parasites in a tragic twist of nature when they latch onto an injured dolphin. They don't simply hitch a ride, they burrow deep, exploiting the wound's vulnerability. Their rough, calcified shells cut into tissue, inflaming the surrounding skin and muscle, setting off a chain reaction of infection and necrosis. Dolphin's flesh, once soft and smooth, is now an uneven terrain of ridges and pits where barnacles and other marine hitchhikers join the grim banquet. The swollen raw edges of the wound ooze phlegmy fluids that attract a host of other organisms, bacteria, crustaceans, and parasites that flourish in this microcosm of rot. This infestation is a vicious cycle. As the muscles take hold, the dolphin's immune system fights back, sending waves of cells to the site. But beneath the towering shadow of the ancient plains, where once great herds roamed freely under wide-open skies, we find a living testament to nature's relentless and often brutal cycle. The bison, majestic in stature but grotesquely marred by a festering wound. This wound, a cavernous pit in its flank, pulsing with dark putrid ooze, is not merely a blemish. It is a battlefield, a dark playground where parasites wage their unending war against the host. What you are about to witness is a stark and raw glimpse into the hidden world of parasitic infestation, a morbid dance of life and decay that exists beyond the comforting facade of wilderness beauty. Bison, those emblematic beasts of the North American grasslands, are often seen as symbols of strength and endurance. Yet, beneath their thick hides lurk enemies far less noble: parasites, tiny organisms that make a home not through mutual benefit, but by leeching vitality from their unsuspecting host. The wound on this bison is the epicenter of such an infestation. A grotesque wound opened perhaps by insect bites, abrasions from the rugged terrain, or even the bison's own scratching and rubbing as it battles the incessant torment. Within this open sore, flies lay their eggs, hatch into maggots, and feast on the decaying flesh, turning this living giant into a grotesque banquet. The smell is fetid, a miasma of rot and sweat that assaults all who come near, a reminder that nature's splendor often has a sinister underside. Delving deeper, the parasite community within the wound is a grim menagerie. Flesh flies, drawn by the odor of decay, deposit larvae that burrow beneath the skin, creating winding tunnels of infection. Fly larvae, emerging from eggs laid on the bison's coat, crawl under the skin to mature in subcutaneous pockets, eliciting pain and inflammation. Ticks embed themselves within the thick hide, exploiting blood vessels, and in the shattered shadows of the wild, where sunlight dares only to touch in slivers, and the heartbeat of the earth seems muffled by layers of ancient dust, lies a creature cloaked in the mystery of myth: the black lion. Its midnight mane absorbs what little light flickers through the dense canopy, a living void prowling the forgotten edges of our world. But beneath this majestic and somber exterior, a macabre secret festers, a gaping wound sprawled across its flank, home not to healing but to horror, a parasite infestation that twists the very essence of life into grotesque decay. This wound is no mere scratch or abrasion. It is a dark cathedral of suffering, a swollen cavern of infection where flesh and fury collide. The skin, ruptured and raw, weeps a viscous foul fluid, thick as tar yet alive with a writhing tapestry of parasites. These are not innocent grazers, but relentless invaders, tiny architects of agony, living in the black lion's tissue like vultures overseeing a once proud kingdom's collapse. As the parasites burrow deeper, they gnaw through the sinews, carving tunnels under the skin, each bite a sentence in a brutal chronicle written in pain and pus. The invaders themselves are a parade of nightmare creatures, larvae, delicate yet armed with voracious minuscule jaws, feast on the lion's decaying flesh, their pale bodies swelling grotesquely with each meal. Small, segmented worms coil in the damp hollows, their slick forms glistening with a sheen that betrays their sinister purpose. Tiny mites, almost invisible to the naked eye, march relentlessly across the wound, laying eggs that hatch into more tormentors, an unending cycle of destruction. The smell is a noxious blend, a savage perfume of rot, sickness, and despair that speaks to the deepest fears of any predator's fate. This infestation has shattered the black lion's natural defenses. The immune system, firing off desperate chemical signals, is overwhelmed, the patient's body reduced to a battleground, each cell a soldier falling to the creeping doom. The host's vital energy is siphoned off by these parasitic overlords, its movements sluggish, its senses dulled by pain and fatigue. The once sovereign ruler of its domain now limps along the fringes, a ghost under siege, its roar a haunted whisper choked by agony. The impact of this parasitic onslaught is as much ecological as it is physical.